Good evening, and welcome back to 13 Horror Nights. It's episode 7, and tonight's movie is Rorschach. Out of all the movies that I'm watching this month, this is the one that I know the least about. I know that it's the shortest movie out of all of them at only 75 minutes. I know that it's the oldest movie out of all of them, being released in 2015. And that's honestly about it that I know about this movie. The entire movie is on YouTube. It was uploaded by the director. And I find this very amusing. It was like, the title is like Rorschach, the scariest film on YouTube. So I think it's kind of funny. He seems to have a lot of confidence in this movie. The description basically just says that there are these two skeptics that go and investigate the claim that a mother has that there's like a spirit in their house trying to communicate with her daughter. And it seems to be kind of like a mix between Paranormal Activity and The Last Exorcism. I know almost nothing else about the plot. The only reason why I even know about this movie at all is that when I look up like recent found footage movies that are really good, a couple of them said that this was like a hidden gem. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Again, it seems like the director is very confident in the quality of this movie because there's like quotes in the thumbnail of the video, like Bloody Disgusting and found footage critic saying that's really good. I think it's going to be good because like a lot of times with found footage movies, like the big studios usually get it wrong and the independent people usually get it more right, although there are exceptions to both rules. But again, I'm very interested to see what this movie is. I know almost nothing about it, so it's going to be a very interesting experience going into this movie almost completely blind. Alright, I'll see you guys when I'm done. I have finished watching Rorschach, and I would say it's good. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I think that what they were going for with this movie was that if there was a haunting happening in real life, how would it go down? And this movie tries very hard every step of the way to be like how it would be in real life. In a lot of ways, I kind of feel like this movie is the opposite of Hereditary, in that Hereditary was like, okay, this is a movie. In what movie ways can we make this the most insane, scary thing we can possibly make it? And this one, every step of the way, they're trying to make this like real life. And while that is one very admirable and good thing about it, it's also kind of its downfall because due to that, it's not that scary, and at times it's kind of boring. The movie follows two investigators named, I believe, Ricky and Ross, and they visit the house of a single mother named Jamie and her daughter Ashlyn. And ever since they moved in, they've experienced weird paranormal activity. They wonder if it might be the grandmother, because the grandmother was the one who moved in with them, but she died shortly after. And there's this creepy doll. They think it's just a female doll that had its hair cut and was put in male clothes. They call the doll Patrick. He's very creepy. And yeah, there's just, it's standard stuff. We've seen this in a lot of different found footage movies. But as I've said, this was trying to mimic real life, and they definitely demonstrate that when it comes to how the characters respond to the paranormal activity. Both of the investigators are skeptics. Ricky is definitely a lot more of a skeptic than Ross. And when things start getting real, like Ricky is like desperately trying to come up with some explanation, something in his mind that can be a non-paranormal explanation, because let's be honest, paranormal activity would be absolutely terrifying if it happened in real life. And I think that the whole real life thing was why they decided to pace the movie the way that they did. It started out with things that are very weird, but ultimately harmless, like picture frames falling over, or things moving that could have sworn you had left it at one place and it's gone and then it appears somewhere else, or like knocking sounds. But as it keeps going, things get more aggressive and they start ramping up. Like Hereditary, this is a movie that goes for the slow build rather than the big bursts of excitement. This movie does have a very gradual raise in activity. It starts out with activity. There isn't a huge break where there's nothing and then it starts, but it's all like a very gentle slope upwards towards the end. I thought that the acting in this movie was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. It's not really a draw for this movie. I also noticed that the trailers gave absolutely no indication as to why the movie is called Rorschach. For those of you who don't know, Rorschach tests are those ink blot tests for psychiatry and psychology. So I thought they were going to do that at some point with the little girl, but they don't. And they don't really they never say Rorschach even once throughout any point in the movie. The only connection I can think of is, besides like the final scare in the movie, which also has very threadbare connection, if any at all, is that the little girl, Ashlyn, like the door to her room. Outside, there's like what looks like a finger painting, but could also be interpreted as like it looks like a Rorschach test. Because the way they make Rorschach tests is they literally just drop ink on a piece of paper, fold it in half, and then unfold it. In my opinion, this sort of seemed like a movie that was found footage because that was the cheapest way to make it. Because I would guess this movie was made on a very threadbare budget, not a lot of big money. I'm sure I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this was probably made by like a film student and like their friends. It is good considering that, but it's not professional. And I think that that's kind of a problem with found footage, I'm starting to realize, because if they try to go for the creating of that spooky atmosphere and like the slow building dread, that's not something that can really be accomplished that well in the form of a found footage movie. Because like they don't really have a score, they don't really have a lot of things, the way they edit is different, and that's because it comes with the territory. But if you're going to make a found footage movie, I think you should do what Hell House LLC did, where it's like, it's not creating a spooky atmosphere as much as just keep hitting you with one clever scare after another. And like keeping it like not jump scares and just having the slow build happen that way. Rorschach does what Screamers did, which was not having that many scares and then having like the tension slowly build up, which can also cause the movie to be kind of boring at points. But I do think that the idea and the scares in this movie are a lot better than the ones in Screamers. I think one great thing about found footage is that it proves that even if you have almost no money, you can still make something really good. Because the Blair Witch Project was made on almost no money. Paranormal Activity was made on almost no money. This clearly was made on almost no money, but just with good ideas and good execution, they were able to make up for that. This is not the best found footage movie I've ever seen, not by far, but considering what it is rather well done. I think that it is very slow in its build-up, and that is a problem, but if you are patient with it, it will work out in your favor, I believe. Now let's talk about some spoilers. In the beginning, at least, a lot of these scares in this movie seem to revolve around Patrick the doll. One of the things that they show all the time in the trailer is like the shot of the doll sitting at like the kitchen table, and then like the camera slowly zooms in, and this is the first real like documented Paranormal Activity thing that's like super serious. The doll's arm moves down, and when you look at the footage, you see this like glowing white thing. It's very faint, but it's definitely there, pass across the screen. And it keeps amping up from there. They get rid of the doll. They literally tie it up in a couple of garbage bags and throw it in a dumpster. But one of the funny things is that when they were driving to the dumpster, there were thuds in the trunk. That happens a lot in this movie. One of the other clever scenes is that they notice that the doorknob to the garage door, that the thing that leads from the garage to inside the house, is jiggling. And when they open it, there's no one there. There's no one anywhere in the garage. There's no one in the car. There's no one in the car's trunk. And then once they leave, after establishing that the room is completely empty, the doorknob starts jiggling again. Probably the one that got me the most, the scare, was that one of them, I think Ross, was in the room where the doll was. And he was just looking at the doll, and then like was looking the direction the doll was facing, and he turns back. And then when he walks away and then looks back, the doll is facing him. Its head is in a completely different place than it was before. And that definitely surprised me. I think that what got me more was the gasp and like the shock of the actor, but that isn't like a jump score. That's like a reasonable reaction to seeing that. So the two investigators eventually stay at the house, and things ramp up more and more. And eventually it becomes clear that whatever is in this house wants to hurt the family. Now this is something, I think it was certainly a very bold move that the movie made. And again, I kept thinking back to, this is supposed to be like real life. In real life, a family like this, a mother wouldn't want to stay and like confront the spirits. Once the child's life started getting threatened, she packed up and left. And the final thing that made them leave was that they heard banging and the child screaming, and then they go upstairs, and there's like a bedroom and then a bathroom like after the bedroom. And like this happened more than once, but this time you see it happen in real time. It pans over there and it's completely dark. All the doors are open. Then they pan back and the bathroom light is on. Then the bathroom door closes, slams shut. Then the bedroom door slams shut, and they all just book it out of there. So they move out. The people who buy the house next also move out, citing loud noises and weird smells they couldn't get rid of. And the final scare of the movie is looking at footage that the daughter, Ashlyn, taped, and I think it was in that bathroom. And there was a point where in the mirror where if you turn up the brightness, you could see this, what looks like a demon face in the darkness, like behind the door. And I think that might be why this movie is called Rorschach, because it's this weird blurry image. And in the posters of the movie, it shows kind of that image. So maybe that's where they were going, but that was a really weak connection as to why that's what you call your entire movie. Much like another found footage movie that's coming later, I think that more than anything else, Rorschach stands to prove that if you don't have a lot, you can still make something as long as you're clever about it. And this movie is pretty clever considering what it is. It's nothing spectacular. It's not even anything spectacular when it comes to found footage movies, or even found footage movies made on a low budget. But it is on YouTube. If you're interested, it's not something too traumatizing. Like I said, I'd recommend watching Hereditary, but you gotta have to kind of brace yourself for it. This is not that traumatizing. If you want a fun, quick movie to watch this Halloween, Rorschach is not a bad choice. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.